Hi, I'm John Allen, President and Founder of Product Safety Consulting. Thanks for chiming in today. We help manufacturers obtain the safety approvals. UL, the CE mark in Europe, CCC mark for China, basically anywhere in the world you need to go. We are in our 25th year of business, and the industry has completely changed over the 25 years. There's so many things going on. There's new tools available for designers to help you make the process easier, more cost effective, and less painful. Today what we'd like to do is give you an overview of a little bit of the history and then pass along some of the new tools that are available for designers. So the only mark for a real long time was the UL mark. You all know the UL and the circle mark for electrical products. Today there's actually several different marks that are accepted here in the US, and we'll get into some of the requirements and how that happened in a bit. What I'd like to do is actually give you a little bit of history before we get into some of the details of the OSHA NRTL program. UL was actually founded in 1894 by William Henry Merrill. He was an engineer out of Boston that came to Chicago for the world's Palace of Electricity back in the 1800s. He got so enthusiastic and ingrained in certifications and safety. He wanted to help companies understand the hazards that they were exposing people to with their electrical products. So he started UL, wrote some standards around them, and that's how they began. Actually, the first standard was in 1903 for tin-clad fire doors. Today, UL Northbrook does some phenomenal fire door testing. The first label, the first UL label, was actually on a fire extinguisher, and then in 1905, UL actually established what we now know as labeling and follow-up service inspection services, which when you get your product certified, 4 times a year, unannounced visits by an inspector will come to the factory to inspect your product to make sure that the product you're manufacturing is the product that was actually tested. ETL, owned by a company called Intertek, actually started as ETL, and it was founded by Thomas Edison back in 1896. The ETL mark has changed hands several times over and is now owned by Intertek. They are probably UL's biggest competitor, along with CSA. I call them the big three. Intertek is actually a couple $billion company with many more services other than certification. The third big three is CSA up in Canada. CSA is actually an organization as opposed to a company, and they developed their own certification system in Canada as well. But the CSA mark is also an accepted mark here in the US. So those are the big three: UL, CSA, and the ETL mark, which is owned by Intertek. Met Labs is important, and the reason I bring it up is the owner of Met Labs, Leonard Fryer, was the one that took OSHA to court and actually got the regulation changed. I indicated earlier that the regulation was that all products in the workplace are to be UL listed, certified, or otherwise deemed to be safe. Today, the regulation states that all products in the workplace are to be approved by an NRTL. Leonard Fryer, the owner of Met Labs, was the one who got all this started with the NRTL program. The regulation actually changed in 1988, the year I started the company. Met Labs actually was the very first NRTL. UL was grandfathered, but Met Labs does hold that torch that they were the actual first NRTL approved by OSHA. This is actually a part of our Federal Register that shows this second column, and it's all about workplace safety. An installation or equipment is acceptable to the Assistant Secretary of Labor if it is accepted, certified, listed, or labeled, or otherwise determined to be safe by a nationally recognized testing laboratory, NRTL. That used to state UL. UL is not a government agency. Basically gave UL a monopoly for many, many years. I think OSHA came out in 1965. The regulation changed in '88, and it's taken 25 years for industry to really understand there's other marks. So UL is the Kleenex. There's no doubt about it. But from a law standpoint, there are other marks accepted here in the U.S. What I'd like to do now is just show you the actual OSHA page. This is actually the OSHA page for the NRTL program. You can see here there's 15 different NRTLs. CSA, is one of them. UL, of course. SGS. Here's Met Labs. What I'd like to explain, though, is although these companies are certified by OSHA to issue certification in the U.S., it's all product category dependent. So UL has, if you click on one of them, and I'll go to, I'm not picking on SGS, I just use it as an example. SGS is actually a several billion-dollar company as well, but their standard coverage is small. So for each standard that they can issue certification, it's listed on this website. So these are the only standards that SGS can issue certification for. They have the main ones, UL 6950, that's information technology for computers. They have medical 6601. They've got some lighting, UL 1598, but you can see it's a handful of standards. When we go to the UL site, a UL page, you can see pages and pages and pages of standards that UL is certified for. Of course, they're the granddaddy, they're the big guy, they're the grandfather. They also write the standards. But what's important to note is if you do go to a different NRTL other than UL, make sure that that NRTL has the appropriate coverage for your product category. Some of the marks I'd like to show you as well, just so you're familiar with it. Applied Research, they are an NRTL that is really unheard of. We've actually worked with all of these guys. CSA, one of the big three, and I can explain as long as we're here showing the marks. What the C in the US means is when an NRTL issues a certification for the US, they either put US or NRTL by their logo. When you see the small c in the US, that means that body, that testing certification body, in this case CSA, actually tested the product to the Canadian standard and the US standard. We'll explain about the Canadian approval system in a different video, but all of the NRTLs, most of them anyways, are also certified up in Canada to issue marks in Canada. So you will see the C in the US. If you don't see NRTL or US, it might be that that particular testing company did not test to the UL standard. So these are just some of the more, here's a Nemco, they're out of the Netherlands. You can see the C in the US. This is Curtis Strauss. FM actually is an NRTL. FM has been around for a long time, typically hazardous location type equipment. There's the ETL mark in Warnock Hershey, which is now part of the Intertek company. Met Labs, of course, Leonard Fryer, the very first NRTL. And you can see all of them with the C in the US. Canadian standard, US standard. If it's just US, that's the only standard they used was the United States standard, typically the UL standard. So these are some of the marks. QPS is one of the newest. We love working with QPS, great company. All these companies are great. We're all compliance engineers testing for public safety to the UL standard. Different advantages and disadvantages are costs and lead times. How quick can you get to market is really the name of the game, right? So just again to show you the regulation, this page is actually the bread and butter of where the regulation is. I'm just looking real quick. Acceptable, right up top. An installation or equipment is acceptable to OSHA as long as it meets these things. And here is accepted. Installation is accepted if it has been inspected and found by a nationally recognized testing laboratory, NRTL. Guys, this is the law. This is the United States Department of Labor. Today we have no federal law that I know of that requires household products to be certified. It's all with workplace safety. So that is the law. If you need or want any of these links, give us a call. We could certainly send you the deck or guide you in the right direction. Thanks for chiming in. We appreciate your time, and hopefully you'll have gained some information, some knowledge out of the video. Look for more videos, and if you have any questions or certification needs, certainly give us a call.